Story 1. I've been a detective for 14 years. I've seen things I wish I hadn't. Things that make you lock your doors twice before bed. Things that make you look at strangers a little too long just to make sure they're normal. But nothing sits with me like that house on Palmer Street. It started as a missing persons case. A 23-year-old guy named Dominic vanished after leaving work at a downtown restaurant. His mother, a quiet woman with sad eyes, came to the station 2 weeks after he disappeared. She sat in my office, twisting a worn-out scarf in her hands, whispering, "He's not the kind of boy to just run off." Most parents say that, but there was something about the way she said it, like she already knew something bad had happened. His last known location was a bus stop. No security cameras, no witnesses. His phone last pinged near an abandoned neighborhood on the east side of Detroit, an area full of empty houses and forgotten streets. I won't lie, I didn't have much hope. People go missing in Detroit all the time, and when they do, they usually stay that way. But something about Dominic stuck with me. Maybe it was his mother, maybe it was just my gut. Either way, I started digging. 2 weeks later, a tip came in. A woman, homeless, half-starved, paranoid as hell, walked into a shelter and told a volunteer that she had seen something strange in one of the abandoned houses. "A man," she said, eyes darting around. "He was in there, but he couldn't leave." The volunteer pressed her for details, but she refused to say more, just kept shaking her head and whispering, "I don't go near that house anymore." That was enough for me. I grabbed my partner, Detective Reeves, and we headed to the address. It was a bitter January morning, the sky thick with grey clouds. The neighborhood was dead, rows of rotting houses, windows shattered, doors hanging loose. The house in question sat at the end of the block, a sagging 2-story with a collapsed porch. Graffiti covered the walls, the words "Leave and Hell is Here" spray-painted in uneven letters. Reeves sighed, probably just another junkie den. I nodded, but I wasn't so sure. The front door was unlocked. It creaked as we stepped inside, the smell hitting us immediately, a mix of mildew, urine, and something rotten. Trash littered the floor, old clothes, broken furniture, a busted television, signs of squatters. "Detroit's finest," Reeves muttered, stepping over a stained mattress. We moved deeper into the house, checking each room. Nothing, just empty beer cans, cigarette butts, and signs that someone, maybe multiple people, had been staying there. Then we found the basement door. It was padlocked from the outside. Reeves and I looked at each other. That was wrong. If someone had been living down there, why lock them in? I pulled out my flashlight. "Help me with this." It took some effort, but we broke the padlock and pried the door open. The smell that rushed out was worse than anything I'd ever experienced. We made our way down the narrow staircase. The concrete walls were lined with old wooden shelves, stacked with rusted cans and rotting food. Then we saw a trap door. A second basement. "Jesus," Reeves muttered, shining his flashlight over the hatch. The handle was covered in deep scratches. Something in me went cold. I knelt down, running my fingers over the grooves. They weren't made by tools. They were made by fingernails. I looked at Reeves. He looked at me. Neither of us spoke. With a deep breath, I pulled the trapdoor open. A rusted ladder led down into darkness. The air was thick, stale, suffocating. I could already tell someone had been down there for a long time. We climbed down. My boots hit the dirt floor, and my flashlight cut through the dark. The space was small, 10 by 10 maybe, just a tiny cement room with a single disgusting mattress in the corner. A rusted bucket sat next to it. The walls, covered in scratches. Some were deep, ragged marks. Others were words. "Help me. I'm still here. Please!" Then, in the farthest corner, something that made my stomach turn. A jacket. Crumpled, filthy. Dominic's jacket. Reeves cursed under his breath. What the hell is this place? I didn't have an answer. There were no chains, no locks. But the desperation in those scratches told me enough. Someone had been trapped here. I grabbed my radio. "Dispatch. We need forensics at our location. Possible crime scene." We searched every inch of that room, but Dominic wasn't there. We found old food wrappers, half-empty water bottles, signs that someone had been feeding him. And then, footsteps upstairs. We went dead silent. Reeves motioned toward the ladder, gun raised. I followed, heart hammering. The floorboards above us creaked. Someone was in the house. I moved fast, bounding up the ladder, gun drawn. By the time I reached the first floor, the front door was wide open. The wind howled through the house. Outside, nothing. Whoever had been there was gone. We never found Dominic. We never found the person who had been keeping him. Forensics confirmed he had been in that room. His DNA was on the mattress, the walls, the bucket. But that was it. No fingerprints, no sign of who had taken him. His mother came to the station a week later, eyes red from crying. I didn't know what to tell her. I just want to know if he suffered, she whispered. I didn't answer, because I had seen the scratches. I had seen the words. Dominic had suffered, and whoever had taken him was still out there. Story 2. I've been a search and rescue officer for over 15 years. In that time, I've seen all kinds of cases. The hikers who think they can handle the terrain and end up lost for days. The kids who wander too far from their parents. Campers who misjudge the weather and don't make it through the night. Most of the time, the endings are tragic. But every once in a while, you get a case that doesn't just haunt you. It changes the way you look at the world. It started on a Sunday afternoon in early April. A family of 3, Michael and Lisa Myers and their 6-year-old son, Ethan, had set up camp about a quarter mile off the Appalachian Trail in North Carolina. It was their first time camping as a family, and they had picked an easy spot near a creek. According to the parents, it was around 4:30 p.m. when Ethan disappeared. He had been playing just a few yards away, collecting sticks and tossing rocks into the water while his mom prepped dinner. They looked away for maybe 5 seconds, and when they turned back, he was gone. They called his name, checked the tent, looked up and down the creek. Nothing. By the time they called 911, it was nearly an hour later, and their panic was full-blown. We got the call at 5:57 p.m. By 6:45 p.m., we had teams on the ground. We weren't too worried at first. Kids wander. They get distracted, follow a squirrel or a butterfly, and suddenly find themselves 100 yards from camp. Usually, when they realize they're lost, they panic, sit down, and cry. But that night, we found nothing. No tracks, no pieces of clothing snagged on branches, no sign that he had been there at all. By midnight, the temperature had dropped into the low 40s, cold, but survivable if he had found shelter. We had over 100 people in the woods, volunteers, officers, experienced hikers. We worked in shifts, covering every inch of ground. By morning, we brought in K9 units. The dog sniffed his jacket, his stuffed dinosaur, even a pillow from his tent. Still nothing. They didn't pick up a single trace of him. That was when I started to feel uneasy. Almost every case, the dogs find something, a partial scent, a footprint, an area where the air just feels off. But this was like he had been lifted straight off the ground. By night 2, the search had intensified. Helicopters scanned the tree line with thermal cameras. ATVs combed the hills. Every hiker and camper in the area was questioned. Ethan's parents were beside themselves. His mother could barely speak. His father kept hiking ahead of the search teams, screaming his son's name until he lost his voice. Around 3:00 a.m., I took a break at the base camp. An older ranger, Gary, was sitting by the fire. He had been working these trails for over 30 years. "First time you've had a case like this?" he asked. I nodded. Gary stared into the fire for a long time before speaking again. "You ever heard about the ones that come back?" I frowned. "What do you mean?" He exhaled through his nose. "Every now and then, we lose someone without a trace. The ones we don't find, that's one thing." He paused, eyes dark. "But the ones we do find," he shook his head, "they come back wrong." I wanted to press him, but at that moment, one of the team leads came over with a new plan for the morning shift. The conversation ended there. I wish it hadn't. At 5:42 a.m., we got the call. Ethan had been found. I was one of the first responders on scene. When I got there, I stopped dead in my tracks. He was sitting under a tree, legs crossed, hands in his lap. Completely calm. Not crying, not shivering, just waiting. He should have been exhausted. His lips should have been cracked. His feet should have been torn up from walking barefoot in the woods. But he looked perfectly fine, like he had just been placed there. I knelt down, my heart pounding. "Ethan." He turned his head slowly, like he had just remembered I was there. "Where were you?" Buddy? No answer. His mum ran up behind me, sobbing, wrapping her arms around him. He didn't react, just sat there staring past me. Ethan, his father said, shaking him gently. Talk to us, son. Still nothing. That's when I noticed his shoes. They were still clean. How do you walk through the woods for 3 days and not get dirty? Back at the hospital, doctors were stunned. No dehydration, no injuries, no memory of what happened. He never spoke about it. For weeks his parents tried, therapists tried. Nothing. Then one night his mother heard him whispering in his sleep. She leaned in close, gently shaking his shoulder. Ethan, what did you say? His eyes fluttered open, but he wouldn't look at her. His voice was flat. It let me go. She asked him what it was, but he shut his mouth and wouldn't speak again. I checked in with the family a year later. Ethan was doing fine, but his mother told me something that still messes with my head. She said Ethan never played outside alone anymore, wouldn't go near the woods, and sometimes, in the middle of the night, she would wake up to find him standing at his bedroom window, staring, watching the tree line, like he was waiting for something to come back, or maybe waiting for it to take him again. I don't know what happened to Ethan out there, but I do know one thing. He wasn't lost. Something took him. And then, for whatever reason, it let him go. But I always wonder, how many others never make it back? Story 3. The later it gets, the quieter the city feels. When you work night shifts as a cop, that eerie stillness becomes normal. Most nights, it's just the usual, some drunks, a noise complaint, a break-in here and there. But then there are those calls. The ones that stick. The ones that worm their way into your brain and refuse to leave. This was one of those calls. It came in just after 2:30 a.m. 911, what's your emergency? The voice on the other end was small, fragile. There's someone in my house. I sat up straighter, gripping the radio. The voice belonged to a child, no older than 6 or 7. Okay, sweetheart, can you tell me your name? A pause, then barely above a whisper. Addison. Addison, are you alone? Yes. That wasn't good. A kid alone in a house at this hour. I waved my partner, Officer Darren Cates, over. Where are you right now, Addison? In my room, hiding. She sounded scared but not panicked. Like she was used to this. Like it had happened before. Okay, you're doing great, the dispatcher said, keeping her voice calm. Are you somewhere safe? The closet. A chill crept over me. I could hear her breathing, shaky and uneven. Good. Stay there. Okay. Officers are coming to help. Is the person still inside? A long pause. Then in a voice so quiet I almost didn't hear it. Yes. I felt my stomach tighten. Okay. Addison, can you tell me what he looks like? I waited. The silence stretched. Then, I don't know. Something in the way she said it made my skin crawl. You don't know? Have you seen him? No, but he comes every night. I felt my stomach drop. Addison, has this happened before? Before she could answer, the line went dead. The dispatcher tried calling back. No answer. We gotta go, I told Cates, already pushing the squad car into gear. Dispatch sent us the address, an old house on the east side of Tulsa, in a quiet residential neighborhood. We hit the sirens and gunned it down the empty streets. Something wasn't right. When we pulled up, the house looked normal. Not abandoned, not run down, just empty. Porch light on, windows dark, a single rocking chair on the front step, swaying slightly in the night breeze. No sign of forced entry, no movement inside. Cates and I exchanged a look. We both felt it. That wrongness. I knocked on the door. Police! Addison, are you in there? Silence. I knocked again, harder. Addison, it's Officer Jacobs. Can you come to the door? Still nothing. I tried the doorknob. Unlocked. That was enough for us. We stepped inside. The air was stale, not like someone had been cooking or living in it, more like a house that had been waiting for someone to come inside. We moved through the living room. Neat, too neat. No clutter, no dishes in the sink, no signs of life. Then we saw a cell phone sitting on the kitchen counter. Screen still lit. A timer counting up. 27 minutes. Whoever had made the call had never hung up. A sharp chill ran through me. This wasn't right. Cates pulled out his radio. "Dispatch, we're at the residence. No sign of forced entry, but we have an active call still running." "Copy that," dispatch responded. "Backup is en route. Any sign of the child?" I looked down the hallway toward the bedrooms. My mouth felt dry. Not yet. We moved methodically, checking every room. Living room, empty. Bathroom, nothing. Guest room, untouched. Then we reached the last door. A child's bedroom. Pink walls, stuffed animals lined up neatly on a shelf. Everything looked normal, but it felt off. No dust, no crumpled pajamas on the bed, no toys scattered on the floor. No signs that a child actually lived here. And then, my stomach dropped. The closet door, slightly ajar. I exhaled and reached for it. The second I pulled it open, I felt it. That overwhelming sensation that someone had just been there. The space inside was small, just an empty shelf and a few hangers. No clothes. No Addison. I stepped back, my heart pounding. "Cates," I called. "We got a problem." We radioed dispatch again. "Can you confirm who lives at this address?" A few minutes later, we got our answer. The house had been vacant for 6 years. The last listed residents, Thomas and Brooke Andrews. No kids. I felt my stomach tighten. "There has to be a mistake," I said. "We spoke to a little girl named Addison." Dispatch was quiet for a moment. Then, "There are no records of an Addison Andrews." Cates and I stared at each other. We had just been in a child's bedroom. We had seen her things. And yet, legally, she didn't exist. I turned back toward the hallway, staring at that pink bedroom, the neatly made bed, the closet door that had been ajar. Then I noticed something else. The rocking chair on the porch. It wasn't moving anymore. Backup arrived 10 minutes later. We searched the entire property. Nothing. No signs of forced entry, no signs of recent activity. Just an empty house. I stood outside, staring up at the second-floor window. And that's when I saw it. A shift in the curtain. Like someone had just moved away from it. But when we checked inside, nobody was there. A full investigation turned up nothing. The house had been empty for years. No squatters, no break-ins, no missing children matching the name Addison. I replayed that phone call in my head 100 times. He comes every night. I still wonder about that house. Was Addison real? Or was I just another name added to a long list of people who had walked through that door, who had been meant to find that phone? I never went back, but I still think about that closet door, and what might have happened if I had opened it sooner. Story 4. In all the time I've been a patrol officer, I've seen a lot of things. Drug addicts out of their minds, domestic disputes that turn deadly, gang violence. But this was the one that changed how I look at people. Because some people, they don't act like people at all. It was a Thursday night, a little after 10:30 p.m, when the call came in. The woman's voice was low, shaking. "My husband, he's not acting right." Dispatch asked her to clarify, but she kept whispering, like she didn't want someone to hear her. "He's been standing in the hallway for hours. He won't talk to me. He won't move." That immediately put me on edge. Dispatch asked if he had a weapon. She hesitated. I don't know." "No?" Something about her tone made the hairs on my neck stand up. This wasn't just a mental breakdown or a domestic dispute. This was something else. I radioed in, letting dispatch know I was en route. I expected a mental health situation. Maybe a guy off his meds. Maybe some drugs involved. I wasn't ready for what I found. I pulled up to the house at 10:45 p.m. A nice suburban place, 2 stories, porch lights on. Nothing out of the ordinary. But the moment I stepped out of my cruiser, I felt it. The neighborhood was too quiet. Not a single house had a TV glowing behind the curtains. No one was out walking their dog. Even the wind seemed to have died. I approached the front door, noting that it was cracked open. Not forced, not broken. Just open. That was enough to put me on high alert. I rested my hand on my holster and called out. "St. Louis PD. Ma'am, you called 911. No answer. I nudged the door open with my foot. She was standing just inside the entryway. Bare feet, thin nightgown, hands clutched at the edges of her sleeves, like she was trying to hold herself together. She looked small, like she wanted to disappear. But her eyes, Her eyes were locked on something past me. Her voice was barely audible. "He's in the hallway." I followed her gaze, and there he was, standing in the hallway, body rigid, hands at his sides, tall, over 6 feet, thin, but his posture was unnatural, too stiff, like his muscles were locked in place. He was staring at the wall, not at me, not at his wife, just the wall. Something about that froze me in place for a second. Then I noticed his breathing. Long, deep, measured. Each breath took too long, like he was counting. His wife whispered, "He won't talk to me." I stepped forward cautiously. "Sir, can you hear me?" "Nothing." "Sir, I need you to talk to me. Your wife is worried about you." Still nothing. Then his lips moved. Barely. And he mumbled something. I leaned in, barely catching it. I let it in." I frowned. "What did you let in, sir?" No answer. His lips kept moving, but his voice didn't change. "I let it in, I let it in, I let it in." Then he moved. It was instant. 1 second he was muttering. The next, he lunged. Not stumbling, not charging. Lunged. His entire body jerked forward unnaturally, like he had been pulled by invisible strings. I barely had time to react. His hands clawed at my uniform, fingers digging into my vest with unnatural strength. I stumbled back, yelling commands. "Sir, back off!" But he wasn't listening. His face was inches from mine now. His eyes didn't look right. Too glossy, too black. I grabbed my taser and fired. Direct hit to the chest. He didn't even flinch. No spasm, no drop. Just kept coming. My mind raced. No one shrugs off a taser. No one. I reached for my gun. "Last warning!" I shouted. "Get on the ground!" Nothing. His head tilted. Then in that same dead voice, "You shouldn't have come here." I pulled the trigger. The gunshot echoed through the house, point blank to the shoulder. He stumbled back, but only a step. Still standing, still staring. Then he smiled. That was the worst part. The smile. Not pained, not angry, just wrong. And then he dropped, like a puppet with cut strings, right there in the hallway, out cold. I stood there, heart pounding, gun still raised. His wife was sobbing, hands clamped over her mouth. I called it in, backup, paramedics, the whole deal. But here's the thing. By the time they arrived, he was awake, sitting upright on the floor, head tilted to the side, staring at me, smiling. They took him in for a psych evaluation. But I swear, when they loaded him into the ambulance, he whispered something under his breath. I couldn't hear it. Didn't want to. He was released a month later. No history of violence, no drugs, no mental illness. Doctors called it a dissociative episode, but I don't buy it. Something was wrong with him that night. Something not human. And I keep thinking about that one thing he said. I let it in. Let what in? And more importantly, where is it now?